It's bacon time, everybody, and welcome to the episode number 2 of our Dads with Bacon Talking Sports. This December 21st, 4 days before Christmas episode, we'll be talking today about Week 15 in the NFL and looking ahead to Week 16, Christmas weekend. I got some good games, got some clunkers a little bit on Christmas Day. Unfortunately, they look like games that look good going into the season, and maybe at least one out of the three might have, certainly has playoff implications. The other ones, not necessarily so much. So I'm going to bring in our three guests tonight. First off, we have Dan Rafferty. Dan, why don't you introduce yourself and welcome to the Dads of Bacon Talking Sports Show.
How you doing? I'm Dan Rafferty. I live in De Pere, Wisconsin, so just not far from you, Aaron.
Yep.
I was thrilled to be able to get the opportunity to be on here today. Anything that has bacon involved, it's kind of a guy thing. I think we can all appreciate that. I'm half owner of New Dueling Pianos. We're the Wisconsin's very own dueling piano entertainment. I've been a Green Bay guy ever since I was 3 years old. We actually moved up here from Chicago. We probably shouldn't bring that up, but anyway. But yeah, we've been up here since I was 3. But absolutely loving living here. I'm the JV football coach over at De Pere High School, and then so I find a way to keep myself busy with sports, music, and of course food. Yes.
Awesome. Yeah, you guys do a fantastic show. I have it's been a while since I've seen you guys, but if anyone's in the Green Bay area and want to check out a fun time, go see Dueling Pianos. One thing I was going to ask you, during COVID, you did some stuff from your house, didn't you? Like some live shows?
Yep, I did. I started a page, a Facebook Live called Play It Again, Dan. And basically it was when we were on that lockdown orders or whatever you want to call it, where it was advisement to stay home. It was a way for Mally and me to stay sharp on my skills, but also to be able to connect with people who, might be living by themselves or friends of mine or whatever. And it was amazing how much of a community was established pretty quickly. I mean, there was 3,000 followers within like 2 or 3 weeks. It was a lot of fun. I did 75 shows, but unfortunately it took that incident to have that happen, but I wouldn't have traded that experience in for the world.
Yeah. Fantastic. Okay. So now, as I mentioned, when we were talking for show prep, one of the things that I want to do for each person as I introduce each of you, as a Packer fan, here's your question for to start out the show.
Sure.
Mathematically, obviously, they're still alive, and frankly, I as a fellow Packer fan, I think that there's a very good chance that what they need other teams to do, for example, the Seahawks need to lose 1 out of the last 3 games. And then I think it's the Commanders have to lose 2 out of their last 3. I could see both of those things actually pretty easily happening.
Yes.
What are the chances they run the table? Because they have to run the table first. I mean, that's the whole thing.
Right. They got Miami, Minnesota, and Detroit left. Can they win all 3 of those games? I mean, if they beat Miami, which is pretty unlikely, you know what I mean? What are the chances that they lose to a bad team like they have throughout the year? It seems like they play up to the level of their competition, or unfortunately, during that 5-game losing streak, slightly below. So
yeah, exactly. Okay, cool. I'll bring on Troy now. Those of you who saw last week's episode, you're familiar with Troy. This is Troy from Stay Tuned with Troy and Howie. So how are you doing, Troy?
Good, man. Thanks for having me back on. It's a pleasure. I enjoy doing this. This is a lot of fun. And again, just kind of recap from last week, I do a podcast, Stay Tuned with Troy and Howie. It's available on all major podcast platforms. And we talk about anything from, sports to music to whatever. We try to have guests on every week. Sometimes that doesn't happen. Sometimes it does. But we get a lot of artists from the Nashville area. So that's pretty cool. And starting to really spread out. We're getting a lot of people actually, instead of us reaching out to them, we're actually having a lot of people start to reach out to us. So we're gaining some traction. So it's a good thing.
Nice.
I'm a Bills fan. So, I don't really need to get into the whole story again, but it's basically something that my mom went to high school with Frank Reich, and that kind of just stuck with me from that point forward. So
nice. Okay, so like with Dan, I have a Bills question for you now.
Okay,
and you're, as a Bills fan, your opinion may be a little different. I guess they are, what is it, 11-3 if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
They're the number 1 seed. So
tied to Kansas City, but had the tie with
Kansas
head. Yep.
Correct. So I mean, basically, they've done everything they've needed to, to set themselves up for a Super Bowl win. Like a lot of people were picking them including myself in the preseason. However, part of me kind of feels like I don't know, like I'm not quite completely sold on them because they had the loss to the Vikings. They had, I think they lost to Miami early in the year in a game where Miami had to come back and
the Jets
to beat them, and the Jets. So if there's one thing going into the playoffs that you as a fan would like to see them improve on to kind of solidify or make you feel a little bit better, what is it?
Consistency. In a lot of different areas, though. Consistency on offense, not having a whole quarter where they just don't show up and they don't even, 3 and out, 3 and outs in a row, that type of thing. Consistency with tackling. I don't know if you've seen the Dolphins game on Saturday night. So many missed tackles. It keeps happening. They keep missing tackles. I get so frustrated. I find myself yelling at the TV, like you guys are professional, defensive football players. Like, you are paid to tackle guys. Like, tackle them. Throwing your arm out in front of somebody isn't going to knock them down. Like, it gets so frustrating.
Dan and I know exactly what you're talking about because we played the Eagles, and I believe the Packers had over 20 missed tackles. So yes, you're preaching to the choir here on that one.
So those are probably the two biggest things. And obviously, when it gets down to the crunch, especially if the Bills do end up keeping home field advantage, I don't want to have to see them relying on Josh Allen being the main runner. I want to see somebody else step up, even if it's only during the playoffs. I don't care if Singletary or James Cook or whatever doesn't do so well in the regular season, but if somebody can step up during the playoffs, like Leonard Fournette did a couple years ago for the Buccaneers, or you name the running back, there's always a running back when a team has a Super Bowl run that steps up when they need it in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So those are the main three ingredients. I think I would be pretty happy if I seen that happening going into the playoffs.
Awesome. All right, now we'll bring in Brad here. How's it going, Brad?
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Those of you that watched last Thursday's Dads with Bacon Talking Games show will remember Brad from that show. Brad, introduce yourself though to the sports crowd here, the sports fans, and who's your favorite team again?
All right. Yeah, my name is Brad Reinhardt. I'm a teacher on the west side of Indianapolis at Ben Davis High School. I'm a former bowling coach for that school for 14 years and won a couple state championships about 3-4 years ago. Had a really good time doing that, but my kids are getting older, so I kind of after 14 years was able to focus a little more on the family and be able to be involved with them doing their sports. But my entire life, I've been a bowler. I'm a diehard Bears fan. Growing up here in Indiana, basketball is pretty much it's godliness in Indiana. So go Hoosiers, go Pacers, and a lot of people ask me why I'm a Bears fan. Is that I actually grew up in northern Indiana in Fort Wayne, and it was at a time where the Colts hadn't even came here yet. So I was centralized between like Chicago, Detroit, Cleveland, or Cincinnati, and at that point in time, and the Bengals were kind of like they've been to a Super Bowl, but then they immediately fell off the bandwagon again, and they sucked.
Sure.
But the Bears in the '80s. The Bears, they were the team.
The Bears,
I say were because it's been a while since they've really done anything worthwhile. But I'm actually in a positive frame of mind as a Bears fan right now, to be quite honest.
I was actually, that leads me into my question then for you is, there were a few weeks there where Justin Fields was just tearing it up. I mean, I think did one of the games, I believe he set a record for most rushing yards, or he broke Mike Vick's record, if I'm not mistaken, for most rushing yards in a game by a quarterback, all that stuff. And obviously, yes, you don't want your quarterback being the leading rusher all the time.
No.
It usually doesn't end well.
But that's also been with like Montgomery and Herbert being hurt.
Sure. I mean, it's not. Yeah, you're right. I mean, sometimes it's out of necessity.
And those two guys are really they're maybe top 2 or 3 1-2 punch in the league.
Sure. I mean, so I guess my question to you is, looking ahead to next year, obviously, because you guys
Oh
are,
yeah,
are out of it.
it's
But
definitely next year. There's nothing.
yeah, yeah.
Everybody should have known that from the start of the season. That this season was,
Well, you got your hopes up there with that false win over San Francisco, though.
I mean, yeah, no. I mean, weather games like that, it's a coin toss. It really is. That's when you're playing in a monsoon, that makes both teams equal. I don't care how good you are.
Sure. So, going into next season, I guess, what would you like to see the Bears improve on the most?
Well,
I guess
I think up front on both sides. I think D-line has got to be like our number one priority because we have zero pass rush. We can't sack anybody to save our lives. That's why they're getting constantly thrown on. Now, early in the season, when Quinn and Roquan and a few other guys were actually there and healthy, their defense the first 5-6 weeks of the season was actually pretty good. They were keeping, they weren't scoring a crap ton of points, but they were holding teams to low points, and that's why I've been actually really impressed with, because I thought the Bears would have been smoked by double digits every single game this year. I would have bet on it, even against the Lions, and I never bet against the Bears against the Lions. But the Lions are good. They're better than the Bears.
The Lions aren't the Lions. Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, the Lions are not the Lions. But yeah, I think defensive line number one, offensive line number two. I think we have a lot of free agent money that's coming in for next season, which is going to allow us to be able to pick up either a nice receiver, get us another corner or linebacker. I mean, I honestly, I really, for the first time in my knowledge as Bears fan, this is the most different I've ever seen a franchise actually being assembled. It was like literally stripped to the studs, the frame. And, when you come back from, trading your two best defensive players away, and the writing's on the wall, you're rebuilding. So I'm glad they got assets for them.
You could argue three best.
Yeah.
I mean, Khalil Mack's in there too.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, but Khalil Mack's he's been doing okay. But
you can see the Bears kind of tried every other way to get better, to improve their team. Obviously, Aaron and I pay attention to the Bears pretty closely. But when it comes to that, Brad, what I'm trying to understand is, I mean, with them, changing management, changing coaches, waiting 2 years, doing it all over again, getting a new quarterback, trading up for a quarter. They tried it every other way, and now they're getting rid of. I mean, they're doing it kind of the way they should be doing it, and it's kind of this. I'm going to have to call you for therapy after this season, should the Packers not make the playoffs, just to be able to understand how are we supposed to deal and cope with something like that. We're not used to doing that for the past X amount of years.
Yeah, you're right. And, ultimately, it's really nice to finally see them not go for the quick fix, because that's what the Bears have been known to do, is that when they get new management, they'll make the big trade to get Khalil Mack. But then guess what? You don't got first round picks the next 2 years, which means you have no young talent coming in. You have no way to sustain it in an affordable way, because the first 4 or 5 years of those contracts, those teams have huge advantage. And if you're good right away, it's nice. Sign sealed difference. It is.
Well, just look at Seattle. I mean, that's how they did it when they won the Super Bowl with Russell Wilson. I mean, that was, they got so lucky with that whole thing. I mean, they had signed Matt Flynn from the Packers for $10 million a year, and all of a sudden Pete Carroll comes in and they're like, yeah, we're taking Russell Wilson and he's going to be the starter. And I remember thinking to myself, well, what the heck are they doing? I mean, and we had Wilson in Wisconsin, so we got to see him his last year. So I mean, obviously, that he's a good player, but I'm thinking to myself, you just gave this guy $10 million. And I mean, granted, it turns out Matt Flynn was not worth $10 million. I mean, he had one good game against the Lions to end the season where he threw 6 touchdowns, and everyone, but yeah, I guess the point, they really did luck out in the sense that they had such an outstanding defense, and you didn't have to worry about paying your quarterback $50 million a year, to build around. So.
Yeah, my question to Troy actually is, what do you think about, with being a Bills fan? You got the Packers-Dolphins game this weekend. So you know, in this, I guess in essence, you're rooting for the Packers to take the Dolphins out. And
yes and no, but here's the weird thing about that. Like I mean, the Bills control their own destiny at this point. I mean, they went out, they get the number 1 seed. They need one more win to clinch the division. So them losing to the Packers doesn't really bother me so much. But if Kansas City holds on to that number 2 spot, which I think they will at least hold on to that, if not jump to number 1, if Buffalo loses to Cincinnati or something, I want to see Kansas City in that 2 spot, and I want to see Miami in that 7 spot, and I want to see them match up in that first round. I think that would be a great game. Tyreek going back to Kansas City. Oh my gosh. I mean, that would be amazing. And the thing is as much of a pain it has been for the Bills to get by the Chiefs, I think the Dolphins have every possibility to knock the Chiefs off in that first round, to be honest.
Oh yeah. I think that they would too, especially with their defense. Both defenses are not. It's right. You definitely bet the over that weekend.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the over might be 60 that weekend, but
yeah, you still bet the over.
So yeah, I mean, I really don't have a dog in that hunt. I mean, obviously, you know, when it comes down to it, you're always rooting against your division rival. But
yeah.
But hey, real quick, I wanted to ask you guys brought up that Matt Flynn game. Is it true that the rumors are flying around that Aaron Rodgers called the plays that game? Is that true?
He played, from what I understand, he called some of it. I think it was maybe the second half, but I know that he was very involved in that game. If you remember, Aaron, he had the headset on the whole time.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So I think that he'll claim to it's going to go down as Packers lore as did it happen, did it not? And of course, was still McCarthy at the time too.
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was.
I mean, who knows what's really true when it comes to that.
Who did McCarthy come in for, by the way? Was that who was that before him?
Oh, that's a good.
Was it Holmgren before McCarthy?
No, it wasn't Holmgren. Because Holmgren left and wasn't it Sherman? No,
Sherman.
No, it was
Richard Sherman. Not Richard.
It was not Richard Sherman.
No, it's not Richard Sherman.
Pat Sherman.
No, Pat. No, it was it Ray Rhodes or was it?
No,
Mike
Ray Rhodes
Sherman.
is only here for the 1 year.
Ray Rhodes was here for the 1 year. Was it Mike Sherman?
Mike Sherman.
It could have been Mike Sherman. It was very short amount of time.
Yeah, it was because I remember one of the reasons that Holmgren left was because he wanted the opportunity to coach and GM. Ron Wolf was still the GM at the time for the Packers, and he wasn't leaving yet.
Right.
And when he left, they brought in Sherman, and then shortly after Sherman started, Ron Wolf retired, and they gave the job to Sherman to be coach and GM. And I remember, remember thinking, like, why didn't you just tell Holmgren you were going to do that and let him stay, and he could have been coach and GM? I mean,
they didn't really want to keep Holmgren.
Well, yeah, and that's that could be true, and I think partially too. I think Holmgren wanted to go back out west. You know, I think he wanted to go to Frisco. That wasn't available, and so here was Seattle offering him everything. I don't know, Dan, what were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I can't believe that Sherman was our head coach for 6 years.
I know. I
mean, we had Rhodes for most of a year. He was not the right guy. They found that out really early, but they held on to him as long as they could for that season.
Sherman didn't take over right away? How did Rhodes get involved? Because wasn't he their D coordinator first?
Yes, he was. D coordinator, which he was great at. I mean, he took over after Fritz Schirmer. That guy.
That's who I was thinking of.
Yeah. Fritz would have been an awesome head. Well, I don't know if he'd been an awesome head coach, but he's certainly been a fiery one. You talk about, coaches that don't get into their players' faces anymore. They don't show that fire on the sidelines. I mean, the Packers, 3/4 of the NFL coaches out there are just kind of like, you know what, we'll get him next time. Or they just walk by, the quarterback walks by or whatever. They're not ready to grab some, but being a coach myself, not that I do that to my sophomores, but anyway, it's something that, you kind of like to see that. I mean, that's where the Ditkas of the world, or even the Mike Tomlins, you see them get a little bit fiery at times, and that's great. When you see, go ahead.
Yeah, and I love that. I love that too. But Dan, do you remember when Mike Holmgren did that to Bill Schrader?
Yeah.
And so you guys so real quick story. We had a receiver for years named Bill Schrader.
I remember him.
Yeah, he was at the Packers, and I think he went to Detroit, if I'm not mistaken.
He eventually went to Detroit, but he was a local college guy too. He went to one of the Wisconsin State colleges.
Yeah, and they had him, and he was a fan favorite because he is, he was a local kid, And one game, I want to say it was a primetime game. I think maybe a Monday night game. Something happened, and Holmgren got pissed at him and went over and grabbed his face mask and kind of shook him and like got right in his face. And the firestorm that happened on local talk radio the next week was just like, I mean, you would have thought that he had, 800 mothers, that were calling up. I mean, just, oh, how could they do that to Billy? And it's like, oh, come on, this dude's a grown man. And, it was funny. I mean, now I don't know if it would happen everywhere else, but it's certainly, it kind of typifies.
It's a different game, man. It's a different, it's a different time. Everything. It's
and for sure, how it, the times have changed. So, all right, well, why don't we get on to, let's talk about week 15, because it was certainly, there were some games that were kind of and other games that were definitely, I guess we'll start with the ending
Crazy.
to the Patriots Raiders. Have any of you guys seen anything like that you can remember at the NFL level? That's what I want to know.
No, especially from a Bill Belichick coach team. Are you kidding me?
Yes,
like
that's
what?
Yep.
That's something I would have seen from the Bills 15 years ago. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Or the Lions or whatever, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and back in the 80s, 90s. Yep.
And to think that, as a player, let alone as a coach, as a player, you don't recognize the importance of like, hey, dude, they were down at halftime. Their defense was, they balled out in the second half. They had a defensive touchdown, had some nice special teams. They were killing it, and next thing you know, all the momentum,
Yeah. Well, and both teams,
bed, man. I don't know if there's really any kind of comparison other than that. That's such a mistake.
Well, and when you look back at the history of that rivalry between the Patriots and the Raiders, I could see the Raiders doing that.
True.
But for, like you said, a Bill Belichick coach team, and I was just, we were actually up north for an early Christmas with my wife's side of the family, and we got back and turned on the NFL Red Zone because we didn't really, the games that were the late games, none of them really were games that we wanted to watch all the way through. So we're like, let's turn on the Red Zone. And I said to my wife, I'm like, wait, did I just see that right? And then it was like, did he not realize that all you had to do was go down and they go to overtime? I mean, it's not, you didn't need that play,
right?
So it makes you wonder.
It's not like you were losing by one, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's so,
And you could even see it, like if you watch the replay, you could even watch the linemen that are just kind of standing around like, they're all just like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And because you clearly, if you were going to run a lateral play or do a lateral, there's a play for that.
Sure.
You have a play designed to do a lateral, and guarantee you that wasn't it.
Yeah.
that was I couldn't, when I watched that happen.
It was a draw.
Right. You were talking about when you've ever seen that before. I haven't even seen that at the high school level when it comes to something like that. That was and then you throw it to Chandler Jones of all people. The guy's a beast, a monster.
Yeah.
And a former Patriot.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Just boom.
Yeah.
Was it Mac Jones?
Mac Jones.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That was something. Whew.
Hey man, all the credit to them for making that play, and making it happen.
Well, yeah.
Couldn't have happened to a nicer team. Couldn't have happened to a nicer
100% agree.
That's a fact.
So now, I guess looking at that game, I mean, the Patriots are obviously, I think the Raiders and the Packers both have the same record, but the Packers still have a shot at the playoffs.
Cost them a playoff spot right now.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. I guess that's my question to you. Looking at that game, is New England done? I mean, obviously they're not mathematically done, but I can't imagine a Bill Belichick team doing something like that. It's like, is their head even in it anymore?
Well, let's pull up the remaining schedule here. They got Cincinnati, the Dolphins, and then the Bills. I mean, you tell me if they're going in.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound so good.
Ooh.
I would say that the odds are what?
You said Bills last week of the season?
Yeah.
Okay,
they might have.
Yeah, they may.
Well,
have
they
home
probably
field.
won't though, because
Maybe, maybe.
They won't have home field wrapped up though, because
Maybe.
the Chiefs are going to win out. I mean, they got cupcakes the rest of the way. I mean, I think they got Houston. Well, no, they just played Houston. I don't know who it is, but it's easy games. I mean, it's like Denver, Vegas. So
Let's see. They're home against the Seahawks.
Yep,
and
there you
they're
go.
on the road against the Raiders.
And the Broncos.
And Denver.
Home against the Broncos.
Yeah. So I really realistically don't see them losing any of those games. So the Bills are probably going to have to play all the way out the last game of the season in order to keep home field advantage. And that's even if they beat the Bengals.
I mean, the way Geno's playing this year and the way that the Chiefs defense has been a little leaky, I could see that being a close game. And if they get in the shootout with.
And what do they say about division rivals too, right? You always throw the records out, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, anything's possible, but if it goes by scratch, they would win all those games.
Right.
Correct.
Sure.
So by chalk, I guess I should say, but so,
okay.
I don't know. What's the next one on the list there, Aaron?
The next one that I wanted to, bring up was, well, and we'll talk about the Vikings. Like I said, whatever. I got to be honest with you. I watched that. I forgot that game was on. I was doing some honeydew list stuff, and all of a sudden it was like 1:30, and I remembered, oh geez, there's a game on, and turned it on, and they were down 33-0 in the third quarter, and I was like, am I seeing this right? And then I thought maybe something happened where like the power went out, so they were replaying like an old Colts Vikings game or something, and I kept watching. No, this is live, and so I was gonna, I'm watching it just to enjoy the massacre, and then they just kept. I was like. So yes, let's just talk about that one right away. Let's get it out of the way.
It's more therapy than anything else.
Yes,
Aaron is ever going right now. Okay, all right,
exactly. So, I guess okay. Let's talk about the Colts first. Jeff Saturday, did he just lose the permanent job after that game or not?
I mean, he went from winning it to losing it, right?
Yeah. Well, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're going in. You're a 4-8-1 team. You go into the team that is, what were they? 10-0?
They're 11-3. So yeah, they were 10-3.
Yeah, 10-3 going into the game, and you're beating them 33-0. I mean, so I would think if they had held on, yes, that probably would have clinched him the job. Plus, I think Irsay is a big fan of Saturday. That's why he hired him or gave him this opportunity to begin with. But yeah, I can't imagine the guy. I saw a lot of people on Facebook saying I wouldn't even let Jeff Saturday get on the plane after that collapse. But which, yeah, I don't necessarily disagree. But at the same time, what's your thought, Dan? Do you think he has a job or not?
Well, do I think he has a job? Personally, I like the guy. I think he'd be great for that position. I think he's obviously a player's coach when it comes to that, based off his history. And he was a Packer for a short amount of time too. But yeah, the game was. It was one of those where you saw everybody get fat and sassy right at halftime, saying, "Oh, look at this!" and "Can you believe this is happening?" And everybody in the world is posting, and especially the Packer fans, because they were just piling on the Vikings. But then you're watching the game. It was a boring game. I mean, if the first half was completely boring, so it was just. Another score after another score, a field goal, guys with weird names doing different things for the, Deion Jackson, catching passes from Matt Ryan. It's like, okay, I don't know if I want to watch this, but it was over. Right. Started getting the honeydew list like you did too. But then it's like, here we go. I don't like when the Vikings win ever, but I don't like it when they come back and get a real big moralizing victory like this. Yeah, they're really, so it's going to give them momentum. But yeah, should Saturday get the job? Personally, I think so. Why not? What do the Colts have to lose?
True.
I mean,
other than to the Vikings.
Yeah. I don't know how you can step back. Like in my thinking, I'm like, I don't know that he deserves the head coaching position, but maybe he could be the offensive line coach. Maybe he could be, something like that. Offensive, what do they call him? Quality control coach, like assistant or something like that. Yeah. But he's the head coach now. So how do you step back from that? I don't think you can. So you're either head coach or you're not, or you move to a different team and have a lesser role, right? Yeah. But like, I just wonder, did the Vikings leave the horseshoe in Indianapolis now? Because it seems like they've been pulling that horseshoe out of their rear end all year long now. Like, I mean, seriously, right?
Yeah.
Or, I mean, on the flip side, it's like maybe Minnesota's maybe a little bit better than we give them credit for. I mean,
Well, they're a good team. I'm not going to deny that.
We'll never admit that.
And I said to Aaron last week, like that they were my Super Bowl pick. I looked at their schedule.
I mean,
I looked at all the close games they had last year. Like
their defense can play well when they have good games. They're one of the top Ds in the league, but they can be a little loosey on the run. You can run on them. Also, at the same time, like Kirk Cousins, I mean, back-to-back 400-yard games, that don't happen by chance, man. You're good if you're doing that. And I hate being a Bears fan, I hate saying it too, but it's the truth.
Right.
Yeah.
And, it is
Well,
what it is.
Yeah. And I guess, well, that was, I guess, going to lead me into one of my other questions, though, too, like looking at the Vikings. And I think I may have even asked this last week, Troy. I don't know if you remember this or not, or maybe I was talking to my wife and asked her. I'm still not convinced. I'm still not convinced that there's honestly not too many teams in the NFC though that I look at and go, that's a Super Bowl team. I mean, Philly, obviously you got to give them their credit. They're 13-1. I mean, yes, okay, they're a good team. Honestly, the team that I'm the most scared of in the NFC, if the Packers were in the playoffs and they were like a number 1 seed, would be the Niners. And I hate saying that too, because I can't stand that team either. But I just feel like they're getting hot at the right time. And I see them, even if they have to go in, if they end up being the 3 seed and the Vikings end up holding on to the 2 seed, I'm sorry. And it's probably going to seem biased to some people, especially Vikings fans. I see somebody said Skol. For those of you on Facebook that are commenting, unfortunately, it just says Facebook user on here, so I don't know who all typed up Skol.
Oh, that might be his actual name, though, if I was a Vikings fan. So. That's not nice. That's
I
not
actually
nice.
have the stream up here. This is a Russell Jensen. That's
there you go,
Russell. Yeah. In fact, I think he's a Vikings fan in like Oregon, if I'm not mistaken, or something like that. So, okay, Russell, just go back to doing a little smoking or whatever you're doing now. And anyway,
speaking of games this week, like about teams do you trust? A lot of people ask about the Cowboys, and Cowboys are also a good team who are right for they're
True.
right on Philly's tail.
But I guess my question,
they threw that INT to lose in overtime, and
I guess my question is,
they're not that bad either. So they're in the hunt for a playoff spot.
But what are they going to do when the playoffs roll around? Because that's when they always seem to fold, right?
Yeah.
Are you talking about the Vikings, Troy?
No, the Cowboys.
Or the Cowboys. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, really, either one. I mean, you could look at both of those teams, but at least the Cowboys went into Minnesota and beat them 40-3. There was no comeback in that game,
Yeah.
So that's what I'm looking at. Not to give all the credit in the world to the Vikings. They came back. They hung in there. They did what they had to do. But if they're down 33-0 in the playoffs, I mean, I would, I could regret saying this later on in a few weeks, but a playoff team isn't going to be losing or blowing a 33-point lead. It just, you don't see, unless they're led by Matt Ryan and their name is the Atlanta Falcons and they're up 28-3 in the Super Bowl. But I don't know. I'm not convinced, because we've seen this before from the Vikings, just like we've seen it from the Packers, unfortunately. But
and Russell even just said that in the comment there.
Yeah. I mean,
did you read his comment there?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I totally agree with him on that too, so yeah, I guess, Brad, you kind of, Dan, what are your thoughts on are you sold on Minnesota after that comeback or not?
The challenge is, it's not that I'm not sold on Minnesota, but like you were talking about, I'm not necessarily sold on the other teams that are in the NFC they're going to be playing. So for them to be able to win multiple games going in, I mean, don't get me wrong, the farther the Vikings go in the playoffs, and if the later they lose, the sweeter it is for us, which I'm sure it is for them. They've been drooling for the past 3-4 years, and the Packers make it to the NFC Championship and lose. So, but right, is Dallas for real? Are the Niners going to be able to do what they need to do? The NFC South, that's going to be the Buccaneers if it ends right now. Yeah. I mean, I hate to say Brady, but you got Brady in that defense. Well, I don't know if it's the usual defense, but at the same time, and then you got the weird teams that you never hear of. I mean, when there's 3 of the 4 NFC East teams that are qualifying for the playoffs, there's something wrong.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
so
isn't it crazy to look at that NFC playoff picture though, and you can literally pick something out of each one of those teams that is like, how are they even here? Or you know,
no,
like
easily.
Okay, like the Niners,
AKA
like
Detroit.
okay, Detroit. I mean, Detroit's there, right? But now they got a leaky defense, which has been coming around lately. Their defense is getting better.
They won like 6 out of the last 7.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, and they took the Bills to the brink on a last-second field goal. So
yeah,
I mean, but look, I mean, the Niners. I think, in all honesty, I think the Niners are the strongest team now. What's their downfall? Now they're depending on a rookie,
right.
7th-round quarterback at this point,
with all the weapons in the world.
Right.
That's true.
I mean, good for him, but that inexperience in the playoffs
easier.
is going to catch up to him eventually.
Sure. Right. It definitely puts a chink in that dominant. Right. You can't say that they're a lock by any stretch.
But I think, with Jimmy there, he's not great. And Brock Purdy probably actually has more talent than Jimmy G, to be honest with you. But that experience it's gonna haunt him. I'm afraid it's gonna haunt him. And I'd like, in all honesty, I think, the Chris Berman Bowl, the Bills Niners that he called every year, I'd love to see that, but
yeah. Oh my God, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, he went every year. He went with Bills Niners until
Bills Niners.
Until the Patriots got hot, and then he would go Patriots Eagles every year.
Yeah. So what do you think about the Bills, Troy, when it comes to that? Obviously, they're rolling. Like you said, you want Kansas City to get that number 2 so they can play a low, powerful seed. But at the same time, is this their year? I mean, I thought last year they looked fantastic. I mean, is this going to be finally where the Bills can finally get a Super Bowl? I mean, it's what do you think?
I'll read the comment that Russell there wrote about 3 minutes ago, where he said, I love my Bills, but I don't trust them either yet because I've been hurt too many times.
That's a good point.
I mean, it's the same thing. And I think a lot of fans can say that about their teams, right? You have your guys are lucky with the Packers. You guys have had good runs. You had some Super Bowl appearances. The Eagles even got theirs out of the way a couple years ago. They finally don't really have to say that anymore. Yep. But you have the Niners, the Cowboys, and as much as the Cowboys was 30 years ago, they still have that, where the Bills have never had that. The Vikings have never had that, So I don't know. I'm not from Buffalo, but I know a lot about that city and the work ethic and the they call it the city of friendly neighbors. I mean, that's what it is. And the city of good neighbors, I think it might be. I don't remember. Okay. It's one of those two. But anyway, like, I know what that would mean to that community up there. And it would be insane.
So you're saying they're like the hot girlfriend. I mean, that's one of the things, right? The one that breaks up with you, goes out with somebody else who's better looking, and then comes back to you again, but she's burned you in the past, but she's still hot. So you want to go out with her again, and then finally, you got to figure out how to be able to lock that down.
You keep giving her second chances, right?
Yeah, no matter what. And that's the Bills, that's the Packers. Well, not the Bears, but whatever. It's sorry, Brian.
I ride that wave about every 4 or 5 years. Hey, there's a playoffs, and then see you later for a while.
So that's interesting.
Which I'm hoping that like this new pattern of like trading off for acquisitions of picks and freeing up money and basically having all the assets you can possibly have, because they've got like 2 second-rounders, 2 fourth-rounders, 3 seventh-rounders.
That's what you have to do.
Dude, they've got a slew of picks. They've got more money than everybody in the league.
But you got to hit on them.
Yeah, but the great thing is though that when you have that many, the chances of hitting it are actually better.
Correct. Yeah, it's weird because many fans have known of any team, that the Bills went through that long playoff drought. It was 17 years, right?
Yeah.
And now, ever since Sean McDermott has been there, like, they've been in the playoff 5 of the last 6 years, and it's just such a change of culture. And you got used to not being in the playoffs every year, and now it's kind of like you're just expecting to be in the playoffs every year, and it wasn't even that long ago that we weren't in the playoffs. So it's a really weird thing. I'm still adjusting to it, to be honest to you. It's but 2 things have happened in that time frame. You have a coach in there, and you have management in there that's setting everything up and doing everything the proper way. And then, by the way, you got a superstar by the name of Josh Allen as your quarterback.
Right?
Yeah, because I mean, like on my end, when it comes to like rebuilding that franchise, think about the last 3 coaches that were previous to Eberflus.
Yep.
Matt Nagy, terrible. John Fox, terrible. Mark Trestman, get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
All 3 of them were just like, come on. every single one of them. Terrible coaches.
Yeah.
And when you get a good leader, and I think Eberflus is a good leader because, like, I live in Indianapolis, so that's where he came from. So I've heard anything and everything. And Colts defense was good while he was there.
Yeah,
a lot of things.
And you brought up Nagy there, and I wonder if the reason that Bieniemy hasn't gotten a job yet is because of Nagy. They realized that maybe it's Mr. Reed there in Kansas City, not anybody else.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it. That whole situation with Nagy and that entire franchise, at some point choosing Mitchell Trubisky, like, just really was the starting point, I think, of the end of that era. And thankfully it's over.
Yeah.
Because it is a new era now, and it's a lot different. And I'm extremely positive in regards to this direction.
Man, that's
for a
just
change.
Trubisky spent 1 year there in Buffalo as Allen's backup, and I'll tell you what, like, he's such a hard guy to not like. You want good things to happen to him.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen, and I don't know. I think
you see glimpses of it,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
but it's never all the way there. And it's he makes the plays that make you go, holy wow.
I wonder if he'll be
But
good
then
enough
he also
to stick
misses on a wide open, like, 30-yard
Yep.
toss. He'll sail it 45 yards.
I wonder if he'll be good enough to be like one of them Colt McCoys that's good enough to stick around for a few years.
I bet he will.
12, 15 years as a backup type thing,
Yeah, as long as
if
he
for
has
anything
mobility.
else, just because of how nice he is, right?
Right.
Yeah, he's
So-
he's good. He's a sharp looking boy to like, hey, I'm here.
Yeah. Maybe he'll have the Matt Barkley role in Buffalo, which is where he's just on the practice squad and he's just there because him and Josh Allen are like best friends. So
Former Bear.
yeah. Former everything, right?
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm sorry, that was Fitzpatrick.
All right, why don't we look ahead
ahead.
now to week 16, and we'll do our predictions. I do want to talk. We kind of started talking about them a little bit earlier, but I do want to touch on the Jaguars because lo and behold, they're actually only a game out of first place in their division. I mean, they're in the AFC South with Tennessee, who just, for some reason, Tannehill looks like an MVP against the Packers, and then every other game just kind of meh, and you
And
had
I don't know if you
Derrick
saw the news
Henry.
today. Did
What
you see
was
the
that?
news today about him? Did you see the news today about?
No, I did not.
There's
No.
very strong rumors that he might be out for the season.
Really? Well, yeah, he
Yeah.
was carted off, and then he came back on.
Yep.
Last week. So okay, well
Who's
that
this?
that wouldn't surprise me.
Tannehill.
Oh dang.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not been confirmed yet, but there is speculation that he could be done for the year.
Wow.
Oof.
Well, okay. So let's talk about tomorrow night's game, which actually, when the schedule came out, you're looking at it going, wow,
Yeah.
Thursday night they really don't care
I'll
about the
miss that
quality of their
game.
games, but then all of a sudden, so Jacksonville at the Jets. Let's just we'll start out with Dan. We'll go right down the line here. First of all, who are you picking? Who are you picking in that one?
Well, I got to go with the hot hand. We got to go with the Jaguars on this one, and I got to kick myself in the head because I had Zay Jones on my roster the past 3 weeks and never started him.
Ow.
Yeah, so
Wow.
I'm out of 2 of my 3 fantasy football leagues as a result of that. But no, and then my quarterback last week was Mike White. So, anyway, good stuff. But I think the Jaguars, not that they're finally finding their footing, but to watch them, to not know half their roster just because they are the Jaguars, but to see the flashes of the talent that they do. I mean, Evan Ingram, you see him out there. You see running back. Is it Robinson? No. Who's their running back?
ATN.
Yeah. I mean, they are really, a fairly balanced offense. And, their defense, again, a bunch of no-namers when it comes to that, too. And I think that's only for a matter of time before you finally figure out who they are. It was like watching the Indianapolis Colts. Brad, you don't care. You live there, but that's where I get it. But the Indianapolis, I couldn't name anybody on their defense, just going through the whole defense when I was watching them. But you get to see the Jaguars. And, I mean, they put it all together. And it's not that the Jets are bad. It's just the Jaguars, I think, are a little bit better because the Jets the past couple of weeks have been on fire.
Well, yeah, they were with Mike White, they were on fire.
That sloppy game they had a couple weeks ago. Yeah.
And then, but even last week, I didn't think Zach Wilson looked that bad against Detroit.
No. Yeah.
But okay, well, let's get the picks out of the way here, and we'll talk a little bit more about the game. Troy, who do you pick for this?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think if Mike White was in this game, I think I would pick the Jets. But I mean, like you said, Zach Wilson didn't look terrible last week, but I'm not sold yet, and I don't think they are yet either, or else he wouldn't have been a healthy scratch. Yep. He would have at least been the backup, right?
Sure.
So I don't know. I think the Jags just are rolling right now. Trevor Lawrence really seems to have upped his game, and kudos to Doug Peterson, right? Because I don't know if we talked about this last week or not.
We did.
There was a guy by the name of Carson Wentz that had a pretty good year under Doug Peterson too, and what has he done since?
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I think we touched a little bit too on how far along would Trevor Lawrence be this year if he didn't have to deal with Urban Meyer last year, for
instead of Urban
most
Meyer
of the
being
season,
at steakhouses getting rubbed down by his waitresses or whatever.
Exactly.
Didn't they just come up again because like some charges finally came out or something?
Oh, really?
Like that?
No, I didn't hear that.
I thought I saw like a off not a mainstream media, but something else pop up recently about him.
I couldn't believe Fox hired that guy after that.
What a dude.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised too. So yeah. Brad, what are your thoughts on the game? Jaguars or Jets?
Jags for sure. Like for both the reasons of all the momentum, they're playing well. Lawrence he's looking like the number one pick that they destined him to be. He's progressing. He's making a lot of really good throws, and he's there have been a couple of those in the first of their back-to-back wins that they were down by like 14 at one point. They came back and just steamrolled.
Yeah, I think they were down by 14 or 17 to Dallas when they came back. Yeah.
And so it's neat to see the maturation of a team that's been perennially bad.
I feel like they're a lot like the Lions.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, they just you watch them. I mean, they were good for the longest time with Brunell, and they had Mercedes Lewis and who was their running? I can't remember their running back.
Fred Taylor.
Yeah, exactly. So you had. They were good for a while, and then all of a sudden they've just been garbage.
Yeah, they had that. They had that little peak in the late 2000s into the 2010s too, when they had David Gerard and Reese Jones-Drew, and they had some pretty good receivers back then too, right?
Yep.
Yeah, like Jimmy Smith.
Well, yeah, but I'm talking about the ones in the late 2000s. There, I can't remember who that was, but
Keenan McCardle.
No, we're aging ourselves, Brad. It was the second resurgence of them.
Okay.
Because I was right there too. I was going Keenan.
Yeah, it was when Jack Del Rio was the coach, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now
back then it was Tom Coughlin. But
now let me ask you regarding the Jaguars. If they end up, let's say they end up actually overtaking the Titans and winning that division, getting in the playoffs, do you consider Trevor Lawrence as a candidate for an MVP?
I don't think so. No. I think he's good. I mean, I think that he's I don't know if he'd be a comeback player of the year or anything like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, from an MVP standpoint, there's just too many other players that are playing.
And I'm not saying he wins it. I'm just saying, does he actually get in the conversation? I mean, is
Trevor Lawrence?
Yeah.
I mean, if they win out, maybe he does.
Well, yeah. I mean, you're talking about like win the whole thing.
I think he gets brought into the conversation, but I don't think
so. That's what Aaron's asking. That's what Aaron's is he even top four?
I mean, no, I don't think he's in top four QBs because you would have to say he's better than Mahomes, better than Josh Allen, better than Joe Burrow.
Hurts.
Hurts.
Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. That's a no on all fronts.
Okay. Yeah, I heard it, I think, on a different show earlier in the week, and I thought I'd bring it up because it was an interesting, I think had they played well all year, the dude's impressive. And I remember him coming out and being drafted by the Jaguars, and I was like, I kind of hope he does well, but I don't really know. The Jaguars are kind of, I felt like they were one of those teams just like the Bears when Justin Fields got drafted, and you're like, no offense, Brad, but I think a lot of people, including a lot of Packer fans, were like, well, just hopefully the Bears don't screw him up, or maybe we were hoping they would screw him up, and
No, but
Yeah,
we got
exactly.
Luke Getsy from you guys,
Oh,
and
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
he's turned out to be a really good offensive coordinator. I mean, he's made
Yeah.
a lot of really good things happen. I mean, think about their wide receiver core for the Chicago Bears. Their
Right.
best, their number one's Mooney, who's good,
Hmm.
but everybody else is on 1 year contracts that
Like
are
Equanimeous
just
St. Brown.
yeah.
Come
I
on.
mean, yeah,
Chase Claypool.
yeah. Well,
I was
yeah,
gonna
fine.
say
I
Chase
mean,
Claypool. Yeah.
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 I mean, but he's been hurt, so he hasn't really played much, and
Yeah.
Pringle was out for almost the whole season. I
Yeah.
mean,
No, I think they would be well benefited to get a big time receiver in there, and
no, I agree.
I think I mean they'll be in position to get it. But do you do that, or do you if there's a premier pass rusher on the board, you can't pass on that because that's more important. But
I think in the draft, I think because right now we're at the number 2, so
I was gonna say, yeah, you got to be up there pretty high.
yeah. Only Houston's got
Yeah.
more wins.
Yeah.
and you can
But then-
you can find receivers in the late first, second round, stuff like that. I mean, so
Well, I've heard, yeah, this is a pretty deep draft for receivers from what I've heard. I mean, obviously there's Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yep.
But he's probably going to be gone in the top 5 from what I've heard.
10, 5, yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, yeah, they'll be able to take him if they want him. But yeah, do you want to?
I don't think you pass on a pass rusher though.
No, and
I agree.
who knows
Especially
what
with the Bears'
Houston does,
defensive problems of getting pressure on the quarterback is that's a problem. Check that box.
Sure. Okay, let's go on to Bengals at Patriots. That's one of the games on Saturday. We just talked about the Patriots earlier. I just wanted to talk because this is one of those games that actually has 2 teams that are, well, one obviously is in the playoffs, the other one's, kind of fighting for their lives. So, do the Patriots have a shot? It's in New England. I mean, obviously, yes, they have a shot. Everybody has a shot in the NFL when you go on the field. But, Dan, Bengals or Patriots?
You got to go with Joe Burrow. I mean, there's too many weapons. That's the thing. If they can get out far enough and be able to hold on, that's going to be the big thing. What I've seen with them is a lot of stalled drives late. I mean, I don't know if that has to. I mean, Mixon hasn't been back full time. And granted, is it P. Ryan, that other guy, the running back, really, really good ball player, and just a load. So to be able to have both of those guys, they've been able to cruise a lot more than what they would have expected. But that receiving core is just so good. You don't see Burrow. You'll see him run around a little bit, but he's not running for his life. They got a good offensive line. So
I feel like their offensive line has definitely improved from earlier in the year because I feel if I remember correctly, the first few games, I mean, he was getting sacked 5 or 6 times a game, and it was like you look at it going, the only thing they really had to improve was their offensive line. What the hell did they do? But I feel like they've kind of shored that up.
When he got hurt, when he got hurt, that was just awful. When he's just getting right every play. But on the flip side, you want to take a look at the Patriots, and I just think they're this is one of those they're reeling from it. I don't think they come back pissed off. I think they come back and they just completely fall on their face.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think I could see the Patriots with Tom Brady and all the veterans they had on defense back then would come back pissed off. But I feel like this is almost maybe are they just too young that they're just that a mistake like that kind of gets them down rather than has them trying to prove that, hey, they're not these this high school team that's going up against an NFL team. But so Troy, Bengals or Patriots?
We're on to Cincinnati, right? I mean, yeah, the Bengals are just. I think they're much better, and I think like you guys were saying there that loss. I think that's going to be a backbreaker. I think that's going to be a turning point in their season. And I don't think they're going to rebound from it. I wouldn't be surprised they lose the last 3 games. To be honest with you, they end up 7-10.
Sure.
So,
Brad.
Yeah, but again, it's having the experience of playing against not as much as the Bills, but every time the Bears played the Patriots, they whipped their ass. So it's been a fact until this year when Justin Fields.
Sure.
But yeah, I think the Bengals will take this one, and if they are going to mount any kind of playoff comeback, it has to happen this week because if it doesn't, they're done.
Okay. Giants at Vikings, another game at noon on Saturday. You got the Giants, who just had the big win against the Commanders on Sunday Night Football last week. Didn't have time to talk about that one, but I wanted to get onto the predictions here. So, Dan, let's again start at you again.
You're gonna start with me again? All right.
Yeah.
You know, the Giants are one of those teams that have been under the radar all year long.
Mm-hmm.
Again, one of those NFC East teams that you don't expect much. But I mean, I think the Vikings should beat them, but I really want the Giants to win.
Oh,
sure. So if we're writing these down, I'll take the Giants. I don't know. I'll take the Giants. That's
okay. All right, Troy. What about you?
You know what? I have a weird feeling about this game. Coming back after a big win like that the Vikings just had, like that's got to take a little bit out of you too, right? Like,
yeah.
I can see an upset here. I think the Giants are going to do something here. I don't think it's because the Giants are a better team by any means. But I just think I think something's going to happen this week. I think the Vikings are going to have a little bit of a letdown. I think the Vikings are going to be, or the Giants are going to be a little bit more hungry because I don't know if they're sitting in that 7 seed or whatever in that. But
yeah, they're
6, 7, something like that. They're right there.
Yeah,
I think they're going to be a little bit hungrier. So yeah, I'm gonna take the Giants at that upset here.
Okay. Oh, we lost Brad. I don't know if
We did.
Hopefully he's coming back on. You know, just to see if he comes back on here real quick. The Giants are one of those teams that you know, they were hot for a while, especially after they beat the Pack. Well, even before they beat the Packers in London, they were hot, and then they kind of hit a skid a few weeks ago where they lost, I think, 2 or 3 in a row. I think it started with losing to the Giants at home, or the Lions at home. They got beat, I think, 31-13 at home against the Lions. And then I think they lost 1 or 2 more games, or they tied the Commanders.
Right.
And I think they also had another loss in there somewhere. And I thought for sure the Commanders would win in Washington. Oh, here's Brad. Hey, Brad.
Yeah, sorry. I had a small difficulty there.
Oh yeah, no worries. So we were just talking about how the Giants are just one of those kind of confusing teams, you know. So did that win over the Commanders maybe get them back on track?
I agree with what I mean. I was going to say almost exactly what Troy said. Is that you know, I think that there is going to be a little bit of a letdown syndrome, and being able to maintain that after such an epic comeback, Giants are kind of rolling. So
sure,
I give them the edge.
Okay. All right. So let's go to let's see the next game. And I chose this game well because we really didn't have it. We kind of touched on them a few times today, but another noon game on Saturday, Lions at the Panthers. Okay, Panthers, I mean, have really tried to do everything this season to give up, and they seem to still win 5 games. I mean, they got rid of McCaffrey, ended up just cutting Mayfield, and now they have Sam Darnold, I believe, is their starter right now. In Carolina, does Detroit win? What would this be? 7 out of 8 if they win against the Panthers to actually go to 8-7 on the season. We'll start not with you, Dan, this time. We'll start with Brad. We'll go opposite way. That's so okay. Brad, what are your thoughts?
I think it's 100% possible. You know, the Carolina running game has kind of stalled out lately. You know, Deontay Foreman came in there and stomped it up for a little bit. You know, it's fresh legs after Chris McCaffrey is traded. So ultimately, you know, I think that the Detroit offense is just gonna score points at will. I mean, they're I think the hottest offense in football right now.
Yeah.
You know, and they've been going up against good defenses and still putting up 30, 40 points. So I don't think Carolina can keep up with that with Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold hasn't proved anything to me. So sure. I definitely said I'd go Detroit.
Okay, Troy.
Yeah, I agree. I think Detroit's just they're way more talented than the Panthers are. And in all honesty, this game's 2.5 for the Lions here. I would take that in a heartbeat. I think it's gonna be a blowout. Honestly, I think it's gonna be like 30-10, 33-10 type game. So yeah, I'm going Detroit pretty hard here.
Okay, Dan.
Yeah, exactly. What everything they said, and there's a lot more in it for the Lions than for the Carolina Panthers, and they're playing that one in Carolina too.
Well,
right?
hold on though, because
I suppose it's the NFC South. That's right.
Yeah,
yeah. You know, and I should.
They have not yet been mathematically eliminated.
I mean, they're only a game out, right?
Because if I'm
they
not
control their own destiny
actually,
in that division.
They do. Yeah. If they win out, they still have to play the Buccaneers.
Yep.
And if they win out which obviously they beat the Buccaneers and they tie with Tampa, they win the division.
Yeah, because
Holy
they beat
crap.
them. They beat them the first time.
I know. It's so they'd be 8-9 is what they would end up being. But
Yeah, because
I
Tampa's
still
6-8, 1 game ahead. Oh
yeah,
my gosh.
which is again is so funny because
Dang.
they've done everything possible to just give up. I mean, if there's a team that you look at and go, that team is tanking, it has to be Carolina, and yet they're still right there because
Right.
their division is such garbage, which I mean that was another thing. I mean, before the season started, I picked New Orleans to win the division, and then I picked Tampa to still make the playoffs
Sure.
as a wild card team. So it's just kind of shocking to see where that team is at. So Dan, why you didn't pick
It's
it?
just
did you?
it's bad math on my part. I apologize. No, thank you, Troy. I appreciate that. But no, it's the Lions. Right, too much firepower.
Yeah.
I just don't think that they'll be able to keep up with them.
Okay, we'll do one more game here. We're kind of running not that we're on a clock or anything necessarily, but we're let's the big. And I will say this. I don't know if you guys have looked at the schedule. Just a kind of a side note. The Christmas, there's 3 games on Christmas. Mm-hmm. All those games, I guarantee you, when the schedule came out, you're looking at them going, "Oh my gosh, those are amazing games. Those will be fantastic." Yep. And they're all pretty much garbage. I mean, except with the exception of obviously Dan with the Packers and everything playing. And I mean, Packers are playing for something. Dolphins are good, but you look at the other game, Broncos at the Rams. I mean, again, I think everybody thought that was going to be a 2 playoff teams, duking it out before the playoffs come around. And then Buccaneers, Cardinals. No one, I don't think, saw the Cardinals being 4-10. I mean, maybe they weren't going to win the division, but I think most people had them picked to be a wild card team also. And yet you have a Buccaneers team that's 6-8 going up against the Cardinals. So those might be a few duds there other than maybe the Packers.
Yeah, at least both teams are playing for something there, right? The other teams, only other one team in those other 4 are playing for something. That's the Buccaneers. The other ones are all eliminated. Yeah,
exactly. So okay, so the other game, I lost my spot here. Okay, Eagles at the Cowboys. Now, have any of you heard? Because I know the rumor earlier in the week was Jalen Hurts. Well, the first rumor I heard was that he broke his collarbone, and then I heard, he has some kind of a shoulder injury. Mm-hmm. Troy, have you heard the latest? Is he playing in that game or not?
He's still questionable at this point, as far as I heard. So here's the thing: they pretty much have everything wrapped up that they want to wrap up. They need probably one more win yet. That's it to wrap up home field.
I think so.
Yes.
Yeah, because they have the tiebreaker over the Vikings. So yeah.
I don't think you want to play
over them at the moment.
Yeah.
I don't think you want to play your quarterback against a division rival that is going to be giving their all against you until he's ready to go 100%. If that shoulder's still bothering him, I don't think you play him. If you have to play him next week or even the last week of the season to wrap up your home field advantage, then you do that. But I don't think you do that this week. So if I were them, I wouldn't play him. And on the other opposite side of the thing here, as a Cowboys fan, you don't want him not to play, right? Because if you beat him, what are you going to hear? If you beat the Eagles and he doesn't play, what are you going to hear?
Exactly.
Oh, well, you beat our backup quarterback, whatever. You know what I mean? So it's it's a weird situation here.
Is anyone who is
Gardner Minshew? Gardner Minshew.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he'll be ready to go, dude. I think Minshew's more than a serviceable backup.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. He had a winning record and I just heard this on the radio today on the fantasy channel I listen to.
Yeah,
that he has a 2.4 to 1 TD to INT ratio. It's he throws. Yeah, it's crazy. I didn't know it was that good.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you remember last year when the Eagles snuck into the playoffs and Minshew came in. And he won a game or two when Hurts went out, and there was starting to be a little bit of a controversy going on there.
Yeah.
But Sirianni went right back to Hurts and didn't really make it much of a controversy. And good for him. I think he made the right call.
Sure.
But even Minshew was saying no, I think I deserve to have a shot to start here. So who knows how long he's going to hang out there, and I don't know how long his contract is or whatever. But I could see somebody taking a chance on him to see if he could be a starter for them. Maybe even the Colts, right?
Why not?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, because you saw him play for most of the season in Jacksonville, and but they were under different management and decided to move off him pretty quick.
Yeah.
So you don't know if he's a long-term answer or because you've seen him be a really great Band-Aid.
True.
he'll get in there. He'll click a few ins in the column for you.
So
well, that's like is he? I mean, that reminds me a lot of Nick Foles. Nick Foles when he he led the Eagles to the Super Bowl, but then where did he go after that? Now I'm drawing a blank.
Jacksonville.
That's right. And then he lost the job to Minshew, didn't he? Did he not? Yeah. So is Minshew going to be the same way? He did well. Or in spurts with Jacksonville.
I don't think there's any replacing Hurts though.
No.
Oh no. He's certainly not going. But I mean,
does somebody take a chance on him?
Could he find somewhere else to actually succeed, or is he going to be a Matt Flynn where they sign him into some big contract and then he just kind of there's nothing there. So I don't know. But Troy, who are you taking?
I'm kind of on the fence here because I've been saying the Cowboys for a couple weeks. I said when they match back up, the Cowboys are going to win. The Cowboys. Boy, oh boy, did the Cowboys let me down last week? That was.
Yeah.
I mean, I did not see that coming. So I don't know where the Cowboys are. I don't know if they were looking ahead a little bit. I'm still going to say the Cowboys win this game, whether Hurts plays or not. I think the Cowboys are going to win this game. I think they're going to try to make it a little bit interesting in that division. But in the end, the Eagles are too far ahead. They have too much of a cushion, and they'll wrap up the division and the number 1 seed either way. So.
Okay, Brad.
But I'll take the Cowboys this game.
Okay, all right, Brad. What are your thoughts?
Man, there's just something about Dallas that I just don't trust.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
They're really talented, and it's almost kind of like they're two different teams compared to the beginning of the year and right now. Because early in the year, their defense was banging. They were shutting people down big time. And their offense kind of sputtered, but now their offense is kind of rolling, but their defense is also giving up a lot of points. So, it's just, I think their defense is getting a little loose at the wrong time of year. So I think I still got to go with the Eagles, whether it's Minshew Mania or Hurts. I think they've got the more talented players to get the win.
Sure. All right, Dan, round it out here.
Round it out. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. I think that, right. I think that it's with Hurts and without Hurts in my mind. With Hurts, I think they win. Without Hurts, I don't think they do. However, since this is a dad's show, and I know that my 23-year-old stepson is going to be watching this show.
Okay.
We live here in Green Bay. He was born in Vincent T. Lombardi Hospital. Eagles fan.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, we had him tested, everything, and he's been a lifelong Eagle fan, even when they were horrible. So now that they're good, I got to hear it. And he's right. And he's right. He said the big thing is, like you said, why even worry about rolling Hurts out there, Troy? Right. But that's the thing. They've been rolling Hurts out there nonstop when he could have just handed the ball off. They got, Boston Scott and was it Miles Sanders to be able to do their thing. So I think that especially against the Cowboys.
Well too.
Exactly. And that's a big back. To be able to know, coaching out there, they've been rolling the dice all year. Why not continue to do it? I hope we see Hurts play because I think it just makes it that much of a better Christmas for all of us. But what can you do? I'm going to change it. I'm picking the Eagles both regardless. I got to. Otherwise, I'll never hear the end of it. Or it'll be a happy Christmas at the house.
Happy Christmas. There you go. Okay. Speaking of that, everyone have a fantastic Christmas. Well, real quick. I guess I said, we're not really on a time. Plans, Dan? What are you guys? What's your family doing for Christmas?
Family. We have 3 family Christmases where we're going the day before to my niece's house, and then now we're having people over to our house the second on Christmas Day, and then we're doing our own family Christmas morning. But I got a show tomorrow night that I got to play for too. So it's and then we have 3 between Christmas and New Year's. So we're gonna be all over the state. It's crazy.
Oh, okay. Now where is your show tomorrow night?
Tomorrow night we're doing a private show at the Automobile Gallery downtown Green Bay.
Okay,
that's for Herkman Mechanical. But then we're down at Lake Lawn, which is a big resort down by Lake Geneva, which is kind of like, if you guys have heard of the Wisconsin Dells, it's kind of like that same idea, but it's more resorty. So we have back-to-back shows there, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then the day before New Year's. So not New Year's Eve, but New Year's the 30th. We're going to be at a place called the Grateful Shed over in Wisconsin Dells. So even if we weren't playing there, the Grateful Shed's a super cool place to see. But you can see everything about us on new dueling pianos, .com, and it's we already have 68 shows booked for next year, so it's gonna be a very busy year.
Nice. All right, cool.
Congratulations.
All right, Troy, how about
up.
you? What's big Christmas plans?
So we kind of have a little tradition here. Started with my wife. Her grandfather was from Puerto Rico.
Okay.
And they make Spanish rice and beans and everything on Christmas Eve. So we always have Spanish rice and beans at our house on Christmas Eve. So we do that. And then Christmas morning, we go over to my wife's mother's house, and we do like a big breakfast over there for Christmas morning. And and then Christmas evening type thing, it's kind of just wherever. Like, it's honestly just a shoot. Who's doing something, we'll pop in somewhere or whatever, that type of thing. Nice. So that's usually how our Christmas goes. But yeah, that's it. Hey, can I bring up a real quick topic here before we get into Brad stuff? And I want to hear your guys' opinion on this. Real quick, another football question. I think it's fair that the division winners automatically get a playoff spot, but do you think it's fair that they get the home field advantage too because of that? Or do you think that should be based upon record?
That's a good question.
I have just a quick thought on that. I think that as long as the divisional structure exists, then I think you have to give them the home field advantage for being a division, because I guess isn't that the precedence that you set by breaking them into divisions and making a winner of said division have probably some sort of priority?
Well, I think it's fair to give them that playoff spot. Yeah. My thing is like, let's say Tampa wins the division at 7-10 and they end up playing Dallas, who's 12-5.
Right.
Like, I don't know. To me, like, that seems like, I get it, but it's also not your fault that you're in a division where Philadelphia goes, 15-2. You know what I mean? Like, just because you happen to be in a crappier division that year, all of a sudden you get home field advantage. Like, that doesn't seem right. Like,
well,
I don't know.
Didn't that happen a few years ago where the Packers won the North at like 8-8 or 9-7 or something like that, and they ended up having.
The Saints had won it at 7-9. The Seahawks had won it at 7-9.
Yeah, I know it's happened to a lot of teams. I'm just trying to think of related to the Packers because I sworn there was a season where we had to beat the Bears at the end of the last game.
Oh, okay. I was at that game.
Do you remember that?
Yes, I do. I remember that. It was the first year of Mark Trestman, so that would have been like
that like Rodgers to Cobb?
God love that man, Mark Trestman.
Yeah,
God love that man.
No, I think it was Jordy Nelson. Either way, but the thing is that the player that he burned still is the worst Chicago Bear of all time is Chris Conte.
Yeah,
Chris Conte was just no good, no talent, overpaid, over rostered. Get off of this team.
We'll take Jay Cutler over him any day of the week. We love that
Jay
guy.
Jay Cutler. A lot of people dog Jay Cutler. Jay Cutler was good.
He was a good quarterback set against the Packers.
Yeah.
He
was always good for one or two picks, but I kind of felt
every
the same
pick
way
begins with Jay. Yeah, we had that one. Yeah,
I kind of felt he was the same way with Matt Stafford though when he was in Detroit. I kind of he was that gunslinger that he was always good for like two picks or two passes that you're like, what the hell is he doing? And as a defense, you better pick it off. And Jay Cutler was the same way. I kind of felt like that. But so Dan, let's get what are your
opinion
thoughts
on that?
I kind of agree with Brad before I go to you. You gotta. I mean, I see Troy. I see your point, but I kind of feel like if you're gonna have, either have the divisions and give them some kind of a reward for winning their division, even if it's a crap division, or else just have one. Two big conferences and have 16 teams in each conference or whatever, if that's the way it is. So Dan, what are your thoughts?
I'd like to see the numbers on what the win-loss is based on better records going into a losing record for a better home field advantage. Just because I just from what I can think of where this actually happened, not that I'm this huge repository of information, but it is kind of cool seeing a team that you already know is better come in and whoop somebody at home, and shame on you for making the playoffs. Kind of is what it looks like at that time, and but that's one of those things where you kind of lean forward in your chair a little bit when those games pop up, just because like, oh my God, they're just going to go into Houston and rip them a new one, or whatever stuff like that happens.
Well, and I've kind of, because that I feel like that question's been brought up every single year that's happened, where we got to change this, and that's kind of been my attitude is. And maybe it's because one of the years was my Packers that were the worst of the two teams. But my feeling was kind of like, well, if you're so much better, you should win anyway,
Right.
So just kind of deal with it. But anyway, so
I don't know, Troy, does that help or not? I don't even know.
Yeah, it does, and I get where you guys are coming from, and I guess my point is I think you're still rewarding them by letting them get a shot in the playoffs.
True.
But
not saying that I agree, because
yeah.
in all honesty, I think that it's, if in other major championship sports, if you think of like worldwide sports, because American football is a global sport, that you look at like English soccer, or if you look at like overseas basketball, any kind of stuff, it's all just like two divisions, and it's just stacked teams. So I don't know. I think that maybe it's just a system that's been in place that they just continue to do it because that's the way it's been.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure I know the answer to the question, but I think it's definitely always good discussion about should those teams have an advantage.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's always fun. I mean, that's what makes sports fun. You have these different kind of topics and debates, and there's not really a right or wrong answer. It's like, well, this is the way it is for now, and maybe we'll try changing it, or maybe the USFL or some league will spring up that can try something a little bit different, and then that way the NFL can be like, well, it didn't work for them, so we won't do it, or whatever. That's what those experimental leagues are for. So, Brad, how about Christmas? What are you guys doing?
Shoot, we're gonna be doing like Christmas Eve and morning here at the house with the kids, and we were planning on going up to Fort Wayne. It's only like a 2.5 hour drive from here to there. But there's apparently like a snow/ice storm coming our way.
Oh yeah.
So, yep.
We're supposed to be getting hit with it tonight. And into tomorrow. They're already closing some schools off. It's kind of funny because my wife's a teacher in the Green Bay area, and so her and the kids are let's cross our fingers for a no school day and all that kind of stuff. And so I mean that's always fun because I still have to work.
No, because that means like you're burning snow days when there's actually going to be like really time for snow days, like in February.
Well, see, the problem with that, Brad, is that the district my wife works for, the last 2 years, like they plan, I think 5 or 10 snow days every year, and the last 2 years they haven't used a single one, and they could have, but they haven't. So she's like, you know what? I want snow days. I want as many snow days as we could get, and whatever. But
cool.
So
just hanging out with family. Got a nice bottle of bourbon that me and my brothers and my dad are gonna share, and we'll get a little Horse Soldier Reserve.
How far of a drive is that from Green Bay?
Where, Indianapolis?
I'm kidding. I'm a whiskey fan and bourbon fan myself. So it's good stuff. Good for you.
Yeah, it was on sale. It was on sale at Meijer, man. I couldn't turn it down.
Well,
take that, Aaron. What are you gonna do?
So we had my in-laws live about an hour north of Green Bay, and last Sunday we went up there to their place for an early Christmas, and then Christmas Eve we always spend with my mom. My dad passed away back in 2016, so she's by herself. So we do Christmas Eve with her and presents at her house, and then Christmas Day, my wife's family is massive, and for years she and I have been together 12 years now. So last year was the first year they did this, where they actually rent out a hall now, and
that is a big family. Wow.
There's like 75 people there, but before that they always had it at my wife's her mom's house, or her grandma's house on her mom's side, and it just became, like her mom would drive down a couple days before, and her and all of her sisters would go over and help clean. And it was just a pain. So now last year they started, and we ended up skipping last year because we went to the Packers Cleveland game, but it's fun. It's chaotic. Thankfully, our kids are old enough now where we can just be like, go play with your cousins and, just have fun and don't have to worry about them, messing up the house or anything like that. It's the only thing that bums me out is that the first year we were together, I got a case of Coors Light from her grandma, and I was so pumped because I was like, oh, cool, I get beer, that's a nice gift. and I haven't gotten any since. And we weren't even married yet. So it's like we've been married 10 years. And I said to my wife, I'm like, does your grandma not like me? Because I see her giving cases of beer to all these other guys here in the family, and I'm whatever. But you know, it's a nice time. So
where do you guys go up there? I'm sure Troy and Brad are dying to know.
Oh,
yeah.
You mean
right around the corner from you, I'm sure.
You're talking about up north.
Yeah, where do you go up north?
It's in the mountain area, Brazo.
Okay, so up off of 64. Okay, sorry.
The
accent will start coming out as we start talking more and more northern Wisconsin. We'll start saying stuff.
What you talking about?
That's right. We won't go that far north.
Yeah, not that far north. No, it's right by if you're familiar with Shea Lake, in that kind of that area, White Potato.
So it's not
Lake.
too far, which is nice. It's not like you're driving 2.5 hours for whiskey, but I get it.
Well, exactly. And yeah, so we get to go up there and drink Kessler's Light, and
and drink Coors apparently. Well, sometimes.
It's Kessler's Light, because what's funny is my mother-in-law, if she drinks regular Kessler, she claims that she gets, like indigestion or whatever, like messes her up. So she drinks Kessler's Light, but she fills the glass like half full with the Kesslers. And my wife is going, because none of us like the light stuff. We all, if we drink Kesslers, we drink the regular stuff. So it's like, why don't you just do regular Kesslers and only fill it up a little bit instead of doing the Kessler's Light and using like half the glass, and whatever. So
there's another line. I think Troy, Brad, and I are seeing right through that one with Grandma. So
exactly.
She's like, it justifies to drink more, and all of a sudden, Grandma doesn't have to worry about driving a snowmobile home or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. So, anyway, that's the show for tonight, guys. Again, Dan, great job. Thanks for joining us. Troy,
thanks
great job. Brad, thanks for joining us and trying out the sports
Merry Christmas.
thing.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Yeah.
Tomorrow night we'll be back here again for Dads with Bacon, talking games and movies and more, but usually we just end up talking games. And everyone have a great Merry Christmas. Enjoy time with your family. Enjoy some football. Hopefully not every game on Christmas Day is as bad as I'm afraid they will be. And we'll be back here next Wednesday with Dads with Bacon, talking sports, talking about week 16 and looking ahead to week 17. So again, thanks guys, and have a Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Take care.